Good evening to our resource person for today, Mrs. Sanchita Srivastava, and welcome to all the participants. We'll just wait for 1 or 2 minutes more, and then we will start the meeting.
Okay, ma'am. Whenever you say I'm ready here.
Sanchita ma'am,
Yes,
our
ma'am.
resource person for today. I hope that you are ready to start the meeting. Nearly 1800 participants have joined us today. So let's start the meeting now.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. And here, this is myself, Sanchita Srivastava. I would be taking up the topic inclusive education and assessment. Okay, I'll be sharing the screen in okay. So I hope my screen is visible. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is visible now. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So here, as you all can see, the topic itself is inclusive education assessment. Okay. So this inclusive education is actually a policy. We find it in NEP 2020. Okay. It's among the one of the policies in NEP 2020. And it says that you have to include every individual from different socioeconomic background as well as children with different needs. Okay, what we call them as special child. Okay, so those special children will also be included and taken under one platform. Okay, so here, now see, this is a outline of my session. First of all, we'll be able to understand the need of inclusive classroom. Why do we need that? Second point, I would be dealing with how to identify the different type of diversities you find in the classroom, and to develop an awareness about the different strategies to teach in an inclusive classroom. See, teaching a normal child and teaching somebody with a special need, obviously you need to have some special strategies to deal with that. Okay, in the next part we'll be dealing with 5E lesson plan. Okay, that after that 5E lesson plan, we'll be dealing with how to deal with inclusive classroom. What are the teaching strategies rather, able to teach through experiential learning. Okay, this is also one of the important features when we deal with the 21st century skill. Then about then we'll be able to write the learning outcome. See, this NEP 2020 is basically a learner oriented, learner centered. So whatever we are doing today, whatever policies we are applying, whatever strategies we are taking, it is ultimately the learning outcome that matters. Okay, then we'll be able to develop different assessment strategies in an inclusive classroom. That means you cannot assess a normal child and child with special need on a same platform. So you need to have some special strategies the way you are going to assess. Now here, now this is basically what is inclusive education. See here, inclusive education is actually a new approach towards educating the children with disabilities, learning difficulties with that of normal one with the same rule. It brings all students together in one classroom and community regardless of their strength and weaknesses. See, when we are dealing with children with disabilities, we should take under that economic disabilities, children coming from a different socio-economic group should also be taken together. Okay, and where many of us have done programs, this training sessions on community outreach program. That means what community is. See, schools today. At present, our school is also related to children, and children along with the family together forms a community bonding. So that means what? If education is taken to those corners of the society where it is very difficult for people to dream of education, so there you can create a community bonding. Okay, regardless of the strength and weaknesses in any area, to see to the maximum potential. That means what? If we are educating everybody at a common platform, we can educate at a greater extent. Okay. Now, when we are dealing with inclusive education, first and foremost, I said that we are dealing with a classroom that is basically segregated but united together. Okay, so what is segregation? See, enactment and enabling policy have led to increased diversity in the classroom. Children from economically backward group, children with special needs, and children from diverse culture is learning together in one classroom. That means in that classroom, you are taking together one single unit along with all diversified groups. Okay. Now, inclusive classroom, basically, it's catering to the diversity. Again, I said diversity, and it provides equal opportunities for all students in the learning process. That means what? When we are taking all the children together in the mainstream education, we are giving them equal opportunities. Okay. Now, research studies have revealed that inclusion is most cost effective academically and socially more effective than segregated schooling. All children benefit from learning together. Inclusive practices began early in the school years lead to inclusive society. Now, here you see, earlier we had special schools for special children. Okay, so if we see that from the cost effective point of view, you have to share the cost of education to two different places, one for main schooling and other for special schools. But if we merge them together, what happens? That segregation word gets lost. The children, the normal children as well as those special children, they get a bonding. They can come closer to each other. And that peer association is also very, very important. Children right from the beginning feel sense of acceptance to the whole society. Okay, that means what? We built a more cohesive society, a very comprehensive uh, teaching strategies could be taken together. And the diversity in classroom therefore need to be welcomed by teachers, peers, and stakeholders. Now, in this one point I want to add, see, nowadays there is a trend, okay, that smart schooling, then smartphones, smart teachers, okay, but again, the word smart investment. Now, what is smart investment? See, if we educate, if we invest in education, we have a better tomorrow. How? Because investment in education will produce lot of educated and specialized or skilled person in the future. Then what happened? If lots of educated and skilled personals you are having, then there would be a loss of unemployment. So if unemployment problem is lost, then you'll have a gross rise in GDP. And that is why investing in education is always a smart investment. And when you take them together, all together, bind together, you get a better society. Okay. Now, I want to ask you one thing, that see, the Indian cinema. Okay, Indian cinema has taken up this issue, this inclusive education in many different parts. Okay, so uh, one picture, I don't know, many of you have must have seen that picture, Tare Zameen Pe. Okay, so there, we had a case that the child had a problem. Can anybody just enable the chat box, please? And if let me get the answer, that can anybody remember that what was the problem that child was having in the movie Tare Zameen Pe? Yes, 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 yes. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, exactly. The child was suffering from a from a disorder. It's not a disease, it's just a disorder. It is known as dyslexia. Now, what happens in dyslexia? The child is normal. The child is very, very normal in all its way, but that reading and writing difficulty is there. Okay, so in the next part, okay, of the slide, I will just give you an idea that whenever we are having that segregated classroom, we have child with special needs, then how as a teacher we are going to handle. Okay, first of all, when we are dealing with these sort of disorders, we should first, we have to understand, rather we have to understand that actually what is the problem. When we are taking a classroom together, we need to know, and as teachers we are very much specialized in that. Every class teacher, you ask them about the children, he or she will give you a perfect data. That means every teacher knows the child in the class. So who is a prominent one, that 80% older and 90% older, those we know it's very common, but we have some children who need special attention. So whenever we are taking the whole classroom together, that special attention has to be given to those children, those who really need that. Okay, but these children, one thing I want to say, that when we are taking this diversified children along with us, every individual children has got a very positive point to them. For example, if you when I was talking of that particular boy in that movie Tare Zameen Pe, see, that particular child was not able to read and write, but he could do magic with colors. Okay, so whenever we are designing a lesson plan, we have to cater to the special needs of those children so that our learning outcome is 100%. Okay, so we have to take them all together and their assessment properties. Okay. Now, you see here, it is a very basic lesson plan format here. It is made for a class 6 standard, 6 standard student. So here basic, see, name, designation, like that. Now here you see the duration, number of children in the class is 45. Out of that 45 children, since it is a segregated classroom, we have merged the normal as well as the special children along with them. So it is a special type of lesson plan that we should do when we are taking inclusive classrooms. Okay, time allotted for a particular classroom is 40 minutes. Now here you see the chapter that is taken is air around us. Again, the approach is humanistic, since it's just a open classroom, so obviously the approach is humanistic. And what is the method? See, it covers 2 subjects, that is EVS. EVS means it covers science as well as social studies. Okay, so now whenever a classroom is there, it is always a best way to interact the children in various sort of activities that we can. Okay, because these hands-on activities are very, very better way or the best way to make the child remember the basic contents. Okay, so when we are dealing with air around us, the activity what we can do is we can allow the children or ask the children to make a firki. Then we can ask them to experiment with empty bottles. Okay, empty bottle means anything that is empty. Anything you see is not empty, it is always filled with air. For example, if you invert an empty bottle in a bucket of water, you see bubbles coming out. So what are those bubbles? The bubbles are actually the air that was there in the thing. So these are very basic. And then another important thing what we can do is air has oxygen. Air has oxygen, so integral part of this is air. Air has oxygen, so the integral part of the air is oxygen, and that is the most needed thing for our survival. So that has to be inculcated, so that idea has to be given, so that is always done through the activities. Okay, now what was the topic? The topic was properties of air. See, air around us is a very basic thing. So in this one particular classroom, we'll be taking properties of air. Okay, now this crisscross subjects, that means what? It is a multi-cognitive way that how we can merge various subjects together. See, along with science, maths, geography, and you see recitation and literature has to be merged together. See, nowadays we all know that art integrated studies, dramas, okay, these are all amalgam together in the modern education system, isn't it? We are all following that. So that multi-cognitive way and approach to education is one of the very, very basic. Now here, now whenever we are designing a lesson plan, we have to find the goal. Okay, so the lesson plan was divided like that. So what is the goal of a lesson plan in that particular chapter? See, when we were dealing with air, we had to develop the understanding and importance of water, what I said, then scientific attitude towards the problem of air pollution has also been taken together, because these are very basic. See, nowadays the education policy, what we are teaching the children should be competency based. You know what is competency based? Competency based is what we are studying today. It should be related to our daily day-to-day life. Okay, because we cannot fantasize the child with fairy tales and all. They should be very much grounded. They should know the crisis of water. They should know the pollution, because they are the one to suffer, because every day children are always going through all this. Okay, and we have to develop now the subjective. What is the subject matter? We should not go apart from this subject matter. Okay, to develop the concept and properties of air. So as we said that air around us, we have to develop the concept and properties of air. So what are the learning outcomes here? See, I said activity wise we can prepare a firki. Firki is just a small wind meal sort of a thing. But what is the main purpose? The main purpose of preparing a firki is number one, it is an activity that would be very interesting for the child, and the child will know that air has got a mechanical force. That means it has the power to push something or rotate something. Okay, then experiment to show air is present around us. That means the presence of air has to be felt. Okay, then another thing, see, oxygen understanding that air has oxygen is also be there. Then you see the next part here, you see we can convert centimeter into meter. So that means here maths is also merged together, because we know that science cannot be separated from mathematics, because every time when we are dealing something to calculate the volume, we need meter and centimeter. So see that maths is also there. Then the final outcome is the child should understand that air is a matter, properties, and can do work. Okay, so in that we did skill training, involve observation, the child has to observe, then defining, see the properties of air, then defining is their classification. Air, it can exist in various form. Okay, then measuring, inferring means come to a conclusion, predicting what can happen, communicating. See, whenever we are dealing with a group discussion, there is always a group of children who can explain better. So that way, you know, that communication in the classroom is very, very important. And then that experimenting and formulating an hypothesis, this is also a part where the study content is also important, because whenever we are dealing with a topic, we have to stick to the goals. We have to formulate the learning outcome in such a way so that the content what we want to give. Okay, see, mainly when the learner centric lesson plan is made, it has to be seen that the child should understand the content. That means our main outcome is the child should know the properties of air, the child should know what is its importance, and child could relate it to the day-to-day pattern. Okay, now see, whenever we are taking a 40 minutes class, okay, and if we are following the 5E curriculum, okay, so what do we do? First and foremost is the word comes engagement. Okay, so whenever you enter the class, you just if you write straight air around us on the blackboard and children open your book, so that might not trigger or instigate that zeal or enthusiasm in the child. Okay, so sometimes we can do it in an off-track manner. For example, if we are air, see, polythene packets, though it is banned, but it is easily available everywhere. So you can just take that packet, and if you blow and make it into a packet or something, and you can ask the children, see what is inside the polythene, and see the children. See, for example, if you have somebody with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, those children are very difficult to handle. They will never open their mouth. Yes or no also they will not say. But see those children, even if they are not interested, they will at least give a look to you. So 5 minutes you can engage the class. So that first E of 5E is engagement, and you can not only with a polythene packet, you can take it anything. Even you can take a firki inside, or you can take a balloon in the classroom. That would create lots and lots of enthusiasm and commotion in the classroom. At least children will be inquisitive. What is this? Why ma'am has come with a balloon today? Next is, one thing I want to say, that whenever we are following this 21st century skill blended learning, or this 5E plan, the role of a teacher is immense, but work of the teacher is very much reduced. See, when we are dealing with this 21st century skill in your classroom, 45 out of 5 should be special, or maximum 10 you will have special children. Otherwise, rest are all normal children. And normal children, 21st century children, they are much, much smarter than as we teachers are. So if you give them just a brainstorming activity, your work is half done. See the commotion, see the explanation, see the inquiries, see the things they come out with. Okay. So next part, next 7 minutes, at 45 minutes, you give an engagement. Next second part, you come to an exploration. Now that 7 minutes, what will you do? You divide the classroom into groups. One you ask them that how can you prepare a firki, let the and lead the discussion, why does it move? So they'll give you an answer their own way. The group B will you tell them to experiment with empty bottles. So what are the outcomes? And group C, you give that experimentation with candle. We all have done that way. Okay, so we can do that. Then next part, after explaining, you can always ask the group leaders to explain the method and conclusion. So you see, 7 and 5 minutes you have already explained. Okay, now I'll tell you one thing. See, we were dealing with air around us. Okay, so I said that air around us basically was under the domain of social studies as well as science. Okay, but here, those of you from the English background, or taking up literature, you all must have gone through this poem. It's a very, very famous poem by Christina Rossetti. Okay, now here the name of the poem is Who Has Seen the Wind? Now here, who has seen the wind? Neither you, neither I nor you, but when the leaves hang trembling, the wind is passing through. Who has seen the wind? Neither you nor I, but when the trees bow down their heads, the wind is passing by. Now see, this English poem depicts all the properties of air. Now here you see, first is who has seen the wind? That means what? Air is invisible. Second point, when the leaves hang trembling, the wind is passing through. That means what? Wind has the power to move objects. Third is what? A very, very strong wind can be seen. You can feel the speed of the wind when it is going away. So these are the main properties of air that has been explained by this poem. Now see, now I said that we are dealing with a multi-cognitive way of this classroom. So what is the poem about? So the poem is an English poem, but it is related to the topic wind. Okay. Now what is wind made up of? Again, the answer is air. Where is wind? That means it is invisible. Where do you find it? Is wind air? What is air? Does the wind move? How do you know the wind moves? Why do trees bow their head? So these are the various questions, that same topic could be merged together, and that is what known as the multi-cognitive way of taking a particular topic. See, here it is not a subject wise. NEP 2020 have made education in a very flexible way. It is not that this poetry should be only in the domain of English, air should be only in the domain of SST and science. Not that way. See, here we have merged the literature. We have merged the literature along with this English the topic, and here the outcome is here. Okay. So then this is multi-cognition. Now, here it is an interesting way. You see, first we had taken the topic, we had discussed, we had the classroom, then we had given this everything together to the children to discuss. Okay, so in your class there might be children, who may not be very much inquisitive, or who may not be very much interested in hearing or listening or reacting to what you are saying, may not be interested. But that particular child may be interested in a very different way. Let's see how. See, it is not necessary that every day we have to go through this formal books study material. Okay, we can have a discussion. Okay, so someday when you can just say that okay, let's go for an excursion, and just see the enthusiasm in the children. So but you have to make sure that make them understand that excursion means we can go from here only. So you can ask some children to dramatize in the form of a spacecraft. They can form UFO. Okay, so the small children, they can show even the motion of an aeroplane taking off, landing. So that would create a very much interest in that particular topic. So that means what? You can even depict the streamlined body, okay, of an aircraft that way. And some children are very much good in drawing. Call those children or give them chart papers or drawing book and let them draw. Let them draw UFO, let them draw a spacecraft. And about the excursion, you give them an idea. See, today we are going for an excursion, but for how many years we are going to the space? For 6,000 years sustainability. So what are you going to take with you? See, this will give a brainstorming activity. They would know that if we are going to space, we need something to eat. We need something to hang on. That means oxygen producing substances. They will give you the answer. And if some children who might not be interested in all this, they will also focus on what they are doing. And nowadays we are having this blended learning technology. So blended learning means we can always take help of the media. That is also very, very important. Media means I'm telling of electronic devices. You can use of TV, then we can use of computer programs. Okay, that way we can show that UFO or whatever is there. Okay, now children can draw also. Okay, then children who are very good at drawing, they will have they will also know the properties of air, and the student would be very eager to perform all these activities. So after you complete all these, see, there is no hard and fast rule to it that you have to do it this way. I am giving you just an example of how a topic can be taken. Topic can be anything. It is not that only air can be taken up that way. See, we teachers are very, very imaginative, and we are very smart because we are dealing with smart kids, isn't it? So then after we complete the work, one member of the group will explain what you do. Some might draw a spacecraft, some might draw a rocket, some might draw an UFO, and they have various of structures which you can't even imagine, because again they are the 21st century kids. Okay, now, so this is how we had dealt with. Now you see, I said there is no hard and fast rule how you are going to take an inclusive classroom. It all depends, it all entirely depends on your own skill, because your classroom is a canvas, is an open canvas, blank canvas for you, and you can make the painting in any way you feel like. Okay, but we have an universal learning design. Okay, so universal learning design, UDL, it is an organizing instructional support on pedagogy based on the way that matches individual students learning style and differences. That means the pedagogy that we are going to follow is depending on the individual needs and individual demand of a student. So according to UDL, it helps students to learn, and teachers must follow, see, multiple ways to present information. This was the first thing I had dealt with, that we had explained the air topic in English. We have done it through painting. We have art integrated that pattern, and even we have included the dramatization form also. Nowadays, a very common thing, that puppetry, hand puppets, glove puppets. Okay, so for smaller children, if you are dealing with a particular chapter, for example, history as well as literature subject, or a storytelling, yes, storytelling also, yes, thank you. So those things, those are very, very important way how can deal with it. So children will definitely do that. Then provide multiple pathway for students action and expression. Obviously you have to give a student an open platform to express themselves, because if they express themselves, the learning outcome would be 100% satisfactory. Then provide multiple ways to engage student, including, see, collaborative and interactive structure. See, multi-cognitive learning and collaborative learning is also again that. So that way, collaborative learning, it is not the task of a single teacher. A single teacher cannot herself collaborate with others, because we need to be discussing among the subject teachers. See, this is not possible every day. You can make a particular day available for that, where subject wise, maths, English, literature, science, all together can take up a class together. Okay, so that way you'll have a collaborative learning and an interactive structure. And if the children are engaged in this way, it would create definitely a bonding among the teacher as well as students, and you'll have a very flexible community of trust. So this is actually a universal learning design. Here in this slide, you see this learner and a teacher. Okay. Now, these are the two different tables we find in a classroom. One side, the learner is there, and other side, the teacher is there. Okay. Now, here, I would begin with the teacher, because teacher is a facilitator. What is facilitator? Facilitator means he or she is a medium or a guide, okay, who transmits the information according to the needs and understands the need of individual student. Then he or she has to redesign the classroom and addresses the code designing lesson for a classroom. So everything the teacher has to decide that. But on the other hand, who is a learner? Learner here is a personal learner profile. See, if you are taking a classroom, every individual student in the classroom is an individual learner with a separate profile. That means their parameters, their understanding, their representation, and their expression is different. Okay. So, and another thing, the next point is, when you are dealing with learners today, it is not that rote learning method where what the teacher will be saying, the student has to learn that. Okay. So since it is a learner centric, the student has a voice and has a choice. See, has a voice. That means what? If he does not like, and if he does not agree to what you are teaching, the child has definitely the right to voice it out. If he or she likes you, he'll say. If he doesn't like you, then also they'll say. So this is a very, very open-ended platform what we are dealing with. Okay. So, and the child today has a power to choose resources. He is there with, see, the Google, the power of Google, the YouTube, so many different platforms, and the child knows from where to get that. Because in our time, we had only the library, and only the library, and the child today is not restricted within the textbook content. He or she can choose from whatever media he can get that. So knowledge is everywhere. Okay. Then the child owns learning. So it is his legal right. If I say legal right, I might not be wrong, but it is a right of the child. Education is a right of a child. And whenever the class, in a class, you have children, these children have definitely 100% right to say, agree with you or disagree with you, whatever you are saying. Okay. So what is there? The learning environment is very, very important if we are taking a general class as well as an uh, inclusive education. Okay. So, the learning environment always should be flexible and blended. Blended means we can make use of various technologies what we need to. Okay. For example, you can always take it, see, like the presentation we are doing. Obviously, someday you can do that. There are various platforms, that blended learning. See, Flipboard is there, Jamboard is there. Then various rubrics are there, which you can do that. Even Mentimeters are also there. So you should know your children's capacity and how to blend. And the flexible one, I said that when I was giving you that example, air. See, air was in the domain of SST, but we blended with art, drawings, paintings, colorful. So these we all blended. So that is a very flexible way. Multi ways of expression. Again, that is the same thing. Multi cognitive and collaborative is same thing. And we can access to tools and resources. There are various different tools. There are various resources we can. But the one that is the primary thing is when you are dealing with inclusive education, that community built on trust. Your children should have faith in you, should trust in you, so that anything they can come up to you. See, whenever we are having children with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, or some like early learning and reading disabilities, so that time, the child itself gets some sort of a low feeling that he or she will not come out to it. So if that trust, that faith, and nowadays you cannot just marginalize that child because he or she is not getting good scores to that, because getting marks is rather something that is not at all important in the curriculum. Okay. Now here you see these are some. Okay. Now here, these are some principles in inclusive education. So what are the principles when we are taking a general class, but when we are taking a class that has got segregated background to it, we have children from different areas, different disabilities along with the mainstream. See, we have to provide multiple means of representation, because I said if you are learning simply writing on the blackboard or giving a lecture method, many of the children may not react to what you are saying. So that way, the learning outcome will go down. Then multiple means of action and expression. This is also one of the thing, actions. You have to give them that. And multiple means of engagement. See, this engagement in students is very, very important, because children coming to school and going home, doing the homework, and again coming back to school, sitting and learning. So that way, the children, our learning outcome is what? Our main motto is to give, express the content. Okay. For example, we are having a chapter, but that chapter, that content has to be given. And what we assess, what we evaluate is how much the content has been given to that, and we measure it as a learning outcome. So that way, multiple means of engagement should be there so that we get a better learning outcome. Now here it is a basic plan where indicators of inclusive classroom. So whenever you are having an inclusive classroom, the classroom is a normal classroom only. But we have children with disabilities along with the normal children merged together. Okay. But when we are dealing with team of teachers, some require specialized people or people having specialization in treating those children with special needs. Okay, so normally in a classroom we have two set of teachers. If we are taking this inclusiveness to a classroom, it is not always possible for a single teacher who is not trained to deal with special children to handle them, because some children, for example a child with ASD disorder, level 1 can be handled in your classroom, but level 2 and 3 need special care, because children have their own tantrums, children have their own comfort zone. So that you have to be very, very careful, and a normal person who has not dealt with or not trained with that cannot handle that. Okay, now so you need special instructors, special people, special persons who are specialized to deal with such special cases. Okay, now that community building is a very, very important, and that community outreach program, many sessions the CBSE is conducting. Why? Because the schools are stakeholders. They are not only responsible for their children, but they are also responsible for the background from which their children are coming. Okay, so that is the reason that teachers use community building to ensure that students feels connected to one another, to their teachers, and that bonding has to be there. And that to create that bonding, one has to deal everything with passion. It has to come to the heart, come from the heart. If you don't love your profession, you cannot show empathy to your children. And that rudeness and strictness, this is not this cup of tea. Okay, so we cannot deal with that. So being a teacher in today's thing, you have the passion in the heart to be that, like that. Okay, and that differentiation, the content is differentiated to accommodate learners of various academics, social and behavioral level. For example, in your classroom you have children coming from various social economical background. Okay, so you give them a project. So if that project, if you give them and it is something very, very expensive, those children, those who are coming from that poor socio-economical background will never be able to participate in that, though merit-wise they might be much higher to that level. So that you have to decide what you are going to give. You are going to make them together. How you are going to accommodate a particular topic. You differentiate the content to accommodate the learners of various academic, social, and behavioral levels. Okay. And now, when you are giving an instructions, engaging instructions. Okay. The teacher plan instruction with the range of learning style in the mind. That means what? You have to reach to the mind of every children. You have to keep in account uh, your skill as well as the children learning and learning skills. Okay, it should be for everybody. Now students experience active learning, partnering and group work. See, group work are very, very important. When you give group work or engaging these children in this group work, you create a bond. That bonding has to be done among the peer group, and you can see if they are working in group united wise, the outcome is something overwhelming. Okay, now see here, values consistent with effective inclusive classroom. So what are the values that you are going to take together? Again, that collaborative teamwork is very essential. Collaborating teamwork means the teacher should be collaborating subject wise together. Then welcome all students in your classroom. Every child in your classroom, whatever disabilities, whatever shortcomings they are having, but when they are with you in your classroom, they shouldn't feel left out. Okay, now see, if we are dealing with inclusive classroom, every staff in the school, okay, in the school should know these children with special needs, and they should help them when they are needed. Okay, now some schools that infrastructure wise, they have built up ramps and all for that children in wheelchair can also come to that. Okay, and even the fourth grade staff also should be trained, so that when they find these kind of children, they should know the urgency and they should know their needs and act according to that. Because taking this inclusive classroom is not an easy cup of tea. Okay, so, and another thing is, when we are dealing with that, we have to establish a classroom community, a develop shared educational program expectation. Shared educational program expectation, that means we have to share among, see, parents are also to be included in your when we are dealing with inclusive classroom. And see, this point is very, very important. See, every student's meaningful participation in lesson together, and can do this by differentiating the instruction. See, meaningful participation, that means every children should participate equally. So you are going to design the pedagogy according to the needs and interest of your classroom. And see, next point, making learning active and participation. Okay, so every child should be participating in this program. So now, so long I was dealing how to involve them, how to design the lesson plan, how to take the classroom. Now we have come to the nearly the last section, okay, where we will be dealing with assessment. Now, what is assessment? Assessment is basically the outcome. Assessment is basically the learning outcome, what you have taught and what the child has learned. Very basic. Now, what we should avoid, that only using IQ and standardized scores, okay, that examination, and that way we cannot assess a child. Okay, then planning instructions without incorporating daily check-ins. Daily check-ins means you have to see the day-to-day progress of your child in the class. So daily check-ins should be incorporated every day. See, as a teacher, when you are dealing with the inclusive classroom, so you should definitely know, I have taught this. Oh, this child has up to understood this much. So the child can do that. That means I am happy that my content has been given to this. Okay, so what students are learning, so what you see, small assessment, daily check-ins is known as a formative assessment. See, we had earlier also formative assessment, that means it is a very smaller assessment, regular basis. So assessment content drive what is being taught, that is always there. So whatever, see, for example, a child gets 10 on 10, a child gets 5 on 10. So that means what? You cannot marginalize the child with 5. Why? Because what we are taking in the assessment is actually the content. The content of the chapter has to be inculcated. So if the child has got 10, that does not mean that he is something very, very superior, but he has understood the content better. So that should be the mindset. And the child who has got 5, that means there is a scope. That child by now has understood only 50% of this thing, so he will improvise in that daily basis. Okay, here now, when we are dealing with inclusive classroom, okay, the assessment, I said earlier also, the parents has to be involved, because it is the parent, after you, who are going to mix with them. Okay, even the child is coming from a socio-economical background, there also you have to take the parents into confidence, because if the parents had faith in you, the child will definitely form a bonding to you. Okay, in class assessment, it includes formal as well as informal way of assessment. For example, I told you that if the child has got dyslexia, he or she will not be able to write the answer in a proper format. Okay, but see, if you can assess that in that art integrated form project work, so that way the child can do wonders. So person centered planning has to be used. You have to find out that which child will do that. So definitely, see, you cannot take individual tests that way, but you can at least categorize. See, normal children you can categorize in a different way, and children with some problem or special needs you can categorize again. So now, for example, if you take a formal test, question answers form, quiz, MCQs like that, many children who is having some sort of a disabilities or something like that may not understand the question even. So how will you assess? You cannot just give zero to it. So when you are taking so there should be a multiple ways. Assess them in their project work. Assess them in something which they are good at. You know, I have seen, literally, I have seen, some children who are suffering from ASD, grade 1, autism spectrum disorder, grade 1. Those children will not respond to you even if you keep on calling his name. So they are very, very particular, even if you change their places. So the mind, the psychomotor problem is there. So they cannot react to that change, sudden changes. So they'll not react. But these children, if you see, they are very good at mechanics. It has been found that grade 1 ASD children, they are excellent mechanics, and they develop to be excellent engineers when they grow up, because these ASD problem, this lasts up to age of 12 or 13 by that, and the child gets adjusted to that. So that way, if the child is good in maths, if he is getting few grades lesser in English and like that, so the report card could be adjusted that way. So that is what NEP deals with. NEP is very, very flexible. Okay, so that is why they have included this inclusive education to it. Then instructions and individual student strength capability drive assessment method. That means every individual. Okay, individual need should be there, and test should be taken according to the individual capacity. Assessment results should be used as an instrumental tool to inform the teacher in planning for instructional method for pace and delivery. That means whenever you get a result, the outcome, you cannot just marginalize the child or just tell him that, oh, you have got such a marks. You cannot neglect them. But, you can use it as a tool. That means you can use it, that result can be used. That means, oh, this child couldn't do better in this, so we'll have a strategy where the child can score better in a different way. So that is your duty as a teacher when you are dealing with inclusive classroom. Then, authentic assessment is used to guide instructions, then evaluate assessment, and they are informal assessment that can be used for natural context. So you can always keep it as a reference. Okay, now assessment depends on the student's strength, student's learning style, individual skill, individual interest, and what needs is person-centered planning. Again and again, I'm telling you that this depends entirely on the individual need of a student. Now, one thing that is very, very important here is portfolios. Many of us, we are already doing that. So portfolios is a very good example where you can judge the ability and select the areas where the child is very good at. Okay, so for example, if the child is good in maths or the writing skills, studies, reading, then work samples show the development level of the student grade. See, daily check-ins can be also taken as the portfolios. Okay, so portfolios, they have got a clear instructions, when inclusion exclusion criteria based on collaboratively determined purpose and different type of portfolios according to that. So we have various type of portfolio again. So we have collection portfolio. Now what is collection portfolio? We can keep a record of the student work from each subject area or the project based learning unit. Again, we can have display portfolio where we can have them. Display portfolio means best examples from collection portfolio. Collection portfolio, you have the work. Out of that best example, you keep the excellent one and give it as an example. And students reflection on personal item, showcasing achievement, teaching portfolios as an example. Okay, and then you have the assessment portfolio. Now what are assessment portfolio? Assessment portfolio is actually the outcome of what you have done. Okay, now here, since I have to go a bit fast here, see general versus normal inclusive classrooms, inclusive student. See, whenever we are dealing with children, we always say that this child has got this much. So how you are evaluating? Okay, you are evaluating and weighing of the work what they have done. You should have a space. I said that if the child has got 5 out of 10, you can always talk to them. You can always talk to them, discuss, and find possible resources so that it might be helpful to the child. Okay, now here, when the syllabus is given, okay, you have to design the syllabus, field work, project, lecture, discussion according to a particular choice you have made on the basis of the need of the children. Okay, one or two type of assignment that we use, diversify the type of assessment. Okay, use assessment method that evaluates student performance for the work done in the class. See, whatever work done in the class, basically it is outside. So take home test, that means what? If the child is a little a slow learner, okay, cannot cope up with daily homework and classwork, so you can ask them. So that way, if you assess the students' ability to demonstrate their knowledge through different communication mode, that report writing, oral report, multimedia, that way. So that way also you can evaluate a child's performance. Okay. Now you see what are the various type of assessment. See, assessment can be categorized into 4 parts. What is product assessment? See, written essays, stories, reports, projects, everything. Performance assessment, see, test, oral presentation, debate, demonstration. These are the various types. And the process focus assessment for the questioning, interviewing, journaling, portfolios, development, that way. Now finally, I want to conclude that whenever we are dealing with grading policies, okay, grading policies should see here that low stakes, that means children who is having lower score should be allowed for test correction. For points, provide opportunity to resubmit their work, debrief exam, that means we can always re-exam them. Okay, then provide opportunities to retake quizzes or tests or rework assignments, targets, feedbacks, composition of group, peer feedback, pyramid grading. After students take a test and get their grades, they can go over the missed question. See, this is also again because we should be flexible in all ways. Okay, then with a small group and resubmit together to raise their grades in the exam. See, this is not for the general children. These we are definitely doing with children with special needs, and it is we and only we who can deal with that. Okay, so here I have come to the end of the session. Hope you had find it useful, and I'm really thankful to all of you to have patience with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanchita ma'am, for that wonderful, wonderful session and explaining it so nicely. the concept of inclusive education, not only education and even the assessment part. That was a complete circle of the inclusive pedagogy. So thank you all. Thank you, Sanchita ma'am, once again.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, you can exit the meeting.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. For the attendees, the attendance have already been marked. Thank you all for staying in this meeting.